And we're back with
On the Record with Tiffany and Kevin.
On 9:30 a.m., The Answer, home of conservative talk radio. All right, Tiffany, you were giving it to us straight, no chaser there. I felt like we were at church, girl. I was like, preach, preach, preach. All right. Hey, so one of the things that I find important that helps me keep a clear head a lot of the times is to understand the system and how it's operating, right? Mm-hmm. So what we have to understand, right, is that in our free market economy, right, in the free market economy, the bottom line concerns of a corporation is its shareholders, right? It's their shareholders. They are trying to make the most profit for their shareholders at the end of the day. Doesn't matter if it's private, doesn't matter if it's public. Right, and that is not a ultra liberal or whatever view of the world. That's fact. You can go read in their financial statements, and they tell you that. They tell you that, and that's important to know. Right, that is the environment in which decisions are being made. Right, the decisions are being made to make the most profit for the shareholders. Right. Hopefully, they're doing it with responsibility. Right. That they also want to that before profits, they're also considering, right, the impacts or the harms that things could have on people. Not just what's the probability of it happening, but if it does happen, right, what is the impact on people's lives? What is a life worth? Right. And so oftentimes people are making these decisions on numbers, right? What's the percentage of this happening? I'm pretty sure that when this train wreck in Ohio, they're going, what are the odds of this happening? And if it does happen, what's the cost? And the cost is measured in numbers and dollars, not in people's lives. That those are actually people being impacted by it. Right? Mm-hmm. And somehow we've been convinced as Republicans to talk about the value of people as somehow being some left-wing looniness and craziness, when it's not. When we're supposed to be the party of family values. We're supposed to be the party that values freedom, right? Mm-hmm. And so if that's the party we are, let's stop being reactionary and lead on these things, yes, right? So that is a system that we operate in. That is a system that oftentimes, whether people know it or not, their decisions are being made. Important decisions are being made that have impact on our lives are being made, right? In regards to healthcare, in regards to the types of systems that are put in place with healthcare, in terms of how those decisions are being made. Right? No. And this is the point where our advocates, right? Because most people are working. They're working their jobs, they're going out in life and engaging in life. And this is the point where our advocates have to be aware of that and use the things to advocate for people, right? So, for instance, in healthcare, right? Whether people really, I always say this, right? And if you're a business person, you know this, right? Your expense is somebody else's revenue, period. So if I am paying $80 billion,
$120 billion, what kidney disease is,
and we're not including
$120 billion a year.
Yeah, and it's not just dialysis; it's dialysis and all the other things related to kidney disease, right?
So if you just only want to look at it in Texas, dialysis in Texas is costing $4.8 billion.
Yeah,
not just dialysis; it's they lump in transplantation
and we have to be aware. Now, dialysis is
that's not the other stage of the CKD.
Yeah, and now we're not talking that dialysis isn't needed, but dialysis is needed, right? But that kind of shades people's view in their decision making. So when medications come out that could prevent that, or in the case like in Ohio, there's a possible, they're talking about these new brakes and everything that could have worked, and the cost. So it was measured in dollars. Cost was measured in dollars, and not the quality of people's lives, not the impact to the environment.
Well, and then of course, when you're talking about something like that, they were looking at probability. What's the probability that something is going to go wrong?
Yep.
Well, I'm sure some actuaries figure that out. Then, okay, are we willing to roll these dice? Well, obviously, with over 800 train derailments, they're willing to roll those dice and deal with
and then it becomes
the aftermath.
And then it becomes an issue of how many people live in that city, right? There's only this many people that live in
What's
that
the
city.
likelihood it's going to hit the news and just really turn it? News cycles are finicky. It's going to go away eventually.
Yeah.
And we'll just deal with the people on an individual basis. What do we think we're going to have to pay out? Those are questions
That people ask.
that have already, no, it's not just questions that people ask. It's questions that have already been calculated and thought of. That's why they had teams of people going door to door. They already knew what to do because they'd already thought through the process and were already 20 steps ahead of the average citizen who has just been hit in the face with the worst experience of their lives.
So it really comes back to that Malcolm X quote of, they're not smarter than us.
They've just planned more.
They just plan more, and they're more organized than we are. Right? They're more
But guess what,
organized than
people?
we
That
are.
is why advocacy is important.
But it has to be, and so we have to also judge the advocates, those people who are advocating for us, right? And
I mean, how many of you, I'm just going to ask this question and let you answer it at your house in your head. But how many people felt like the EPA was advocating for the residents?
I didn't.
Did it feel like they were advocating for the residents?
Nope. It didn't. They sent the black guy out there, right?
Hey there!
Yeah, and I'm not going to comment
Tap
on
dancing
that.
and cooning.
So they did that,
We've
right?
had this conversation before.
And so remember the other thing. I'm going to take us down a little, digress a little bit. Remember when they were talking about,
I bet he was swalling hard when he had to drink that water.
yeah, they didn't drink that water,
know,
please. It's like
bust in
everyone's saying that that President Biden should be there.
water's safe.
Wait a minute. They were saying President Biden should be there. President Biden should be there. Whether you know it or not, right? The President of the United States has a group of people who go forward. They actually go into the communities that he's supposed to go into. They do that ahead of time. He's the most protected man in the world. Doesn't matter who's there, who's actual president. So people, remember you and I were talking about this. I said, you know what? I bet they've already sent a forward team there, and they have calculated there ain't no way that we're letting the president of the United States
we're
come
letting
in
the
here.
president come in here. He's 80-something. No.
Yeah, that simply wasn't going to happen, right? And, there are all these other reasons coming, right? And I'm pretty sure when Trump went there, his forward team was like, I don't know, dude.
do it. I'm sure that they
were.
I'm sure everybody was telling him not to do it.
See, but that's important to know, right? Is that even Trump waited several weeks before he went, and Biden wasn't going. Biden still probably not going for a while. He should go, right? But he's not going to be going for a while because of the levels of toxicity that are there. That are simply there. So if those people aren't going, how the hell are you telling me to drink the water? The water's safe.
Or, hey there, Amanda, stay in your house, which is about 3 feet away from this.
Yeah.
You're
and
good.
so that's the part in the system, right?
You just listen to this and you're like, and you're supposed to be advocating for me.
Yeah, but that's
you're
part of the
sending out
system.
Forms and stuff that.
Yeah,
oh
but those forms and
just,
stuff are to cover the corporations.
Yeah,
right.
And everything about it feels that way. Yet you're representing yourself as a neutral party who's here simply to protect the environment. You're saying you're protecting the environment. The first and telling people that over 40,000 dead animals.
Doesn't matter. No, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah,
it's all good.
And I can tell you, right, and this is why
I went through.
I was going to ask you about that. Talk to us about when you were a kid, Crystal Beach. We want to talk about that.
That's right. There was an oil spill off the coast.
When you were a kid in Beaumont, Texas.
My summers were the best summers. I grew up in Southeast Texas, super awesome place. I mean,
that was kind of Valley Girl, but we'll overlook that.
We have, we definitely have some issues with race there, but we're talking about just what me and my family, what we did. I had a great childhood with my mom and dad.
Tell us about the beach.
So we would go to the beach from the time it warmed up. We'd go to the beach on the weekends and really spend our summers just hanging out at the beach there. And so. And Crystal Beach was, one of the most beautiful beaches.
So describe it.
So when you would walk out in the water, I mean, you could walk way out, and look straight down and just see all of the wildlife, just all of the beautiful fish swimming around, and see straight to the bottom, see to the sand and everything, and swim down. And it was just amazing. It was, God's creation, amazing. And we loved it. So my dad was like quintessential awesome dad. So he got a tent, and we had this blue tent that had like 200 pieces to it. Anyway, I don't know how he put that thing together every time.
But what did the beach look like?
And we would walk through the sand. You could take off your shoes and walk in the sand, and the sand was beautiful. It was lovely.
And you can see straight to the bottom.
see straight to the bottom of the water.
Which is why it was called Crystal Beach.
Yeah, that's why it had that name. But even if you weren't at the Crystal Beach section, if you were just on one of the other beaches, it was still pristine and gorgeous, right? When that oil spill happened, first of all, Winnie, Texas, you drove through Winnie from Beaumont to get to the beach, and Winnie was still, like 15 miles or more from the beach.
Mm-hmm.
But Winnie was where you would start getting excited because you were about to be there. When you drove into Winnie, the smell.
After this oil
spill.
The
smell after the oil spill. Which, first of all, you couldn't go past Winnie. They wouldn't allow you in. But they removed metric tons of wildlife that was killed. So I'm sitting here listening to what they're saying about this area. The smell has to be just disheartening and overwhelming to the people that are there. So the smell was one thing, and it was that way for months afterwards. Then, when we were finally allowed in, it has never been and never was from that point forward the same. The water was, if there was a foot of water, you couldn't see your feet.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't see your feet. There was nothing swimming up to you in the water, nothing to snorkel around and look at. Nothing. There was blocks of oil, but it was like stuck to a bunch of stuff. So it wasn't like oil, like you would normally think of oil as a liquid. It was actually all throughout the sand. So the sand was, peppered with oil. The sand dunes, it was the most
egregious.
Yeah.
In my words, I think it'd be egregious. And then, but it's the same playbook, right? The exact same playbook in Ohio. First, we come out and we send people out who work for the corporation that caused the damage and reassure us that everything is going to be all right.
EPA.
Right, and then tell us that, hey, it's not going to be that bad. The company's going to take responsibility and clean it up.
And the EPA signs off on it.
And doesn't happen.
And the whole thing is still trash when they're done.
And we're going to leave you with that. And you've been listening to On the Record with Kevin and Tiffany on 9:30 a.m. The Answer, home of conservative
reality and truth reign.